Hello and welcome to PT and Nutrition Education's e-learning platform. Today we are continuing with our preparation for the examination in the principles of fitness, exercise and training. And as you can see, today's topic is going to be related to body composition. So the objectives for today's lecture are to define body composition, to describe the different types of body mass that we have, to understand and describe somatotyping and body mass index, and identifies the way in which body composition can be measured. Okay, so if we first focus on objective 1, which is defining body composition, when you step onto a scale and that scale gives you a number, essentially what's being weighed there are two of the essential masses, and that's our fat mass and our lean body mass. Now, in terms of the ratio between those two masses, that is what our body composition is. So as you can see, the relative ratio of fat mass to lean body mass. Of course, if we weigh 100 kilos, then what we'd want to know is, of that 100 kilos of body weight, how much of that belongs to fat mass and how much of that belongs to lean body mass. And that will give us an indication into fitness levels, health, and whether changes need to be made. And this is important to have this kind of information, especially when you're working with your clients. Having just a number on the scale doesn't give us the full picture of that person's health, well-being and fitness. By knowing the relative ratios of the masses, you can then start to plan accordingly with your nutrition and also with your fitness regime, where we can make and manipulate the fat mass to lean body mass ratios. Of course, it's going to be more advantageous from a physical standpoint and a health standpoint, where we're going to increase lean body mass and reduce fat mass. However, fat mass is very essential, and as you'll learn in your nutrition at level 3, there are some very important roles that fat plays within the body. So we shouldn't just dismiss fat mass as the bad guy. It certainly isn't, and plays some functional roles. However, with that being said, there is strong scientific evidence now linking increases in lean body mass to reductions in all-cause mortality. Essentially what this means is that if we have an increase in our lean body mass, we have an ability to fight disease and essentially not die. So quite often there is this narrative of people being over fat and the health complications that that can cause, but very few people often talk about people being under muscled. And now with this new scientific evidence, it may place more of a spotlight on people increasing their lean body mass in order to reduce all-cause mortalities. Okay, so if we take a closer look at the types of body mass, as identified, we've looked at lean body mass and fat mass making up our total body weight. But if we break those down and we look at lean body mass, for example, we can see there are 4 constituents to that lean body mass. First off, we have muscle, which actually makes up the highest percentage of our lean body mass. This is our skeletal muscle mass, which we're able to contract to produce force and movement. Bone, which is of course made up within our skeleton, and within our bone we have the ability to store minerals. This is also the case with blood, so we can carry minerals within the blood, and again this makes up a part of our lean body mass. And then lastly we have our water, so a majority of our body is actually made up of water, and this is contained within muscle, within our blood, within our organs and so on. Moving on to fat mass, we have our fat cells, which are known as adipose tissue, and we can find adipose tissue in 2 places. One, we find it as visceral fat, and this is the fat which surrounds our organs deep within the body. And then secondly, we have our subcutaneous fat that we find underneath the skin. So this is generally the stuff where we can be considered to be over fat based on the appearance that subcutaneous fat can give to the human body. So there we have lean body mass and we have fat mass, and of course it's about the percentages between these two which can determine the health parameters that we're in. So, of course, as a personal trainer and fitness instructor, you might be wondering how we can manipulate body composition when it comes to helping our clients. Of course, through the appropriate exercise and nutrition, we can make substantial changes to somebody's body composition, which can, of course, favor their performance in a sport, in exercise, or of course indeed in health as well. So if we take this example of a boxer, recomposition over a 12-week period, you can see that his starting statistics were as follows. So his body weight was at 80 kilograms, his body fat was 15%, so of course this meant that his fat mass was 12 kilos, and then the remaining amount of his total body weight was made up from his lean body mass at 68 kilos. So in total, this boxer named Jack Flatley had around about 12 weeks in order to prepare for competition. As you can see, he's a professional fighter, and one of the necessities of a professional combat athlete is that they need to make the weight. So not only were we trying to recompose his body weight, we were also trying to reduce his overall total body mass in order to make the weight. So over a 12-week period, Jack embarked upon an intervention for his training and his nutrition. And you can see over that 12-week period, we had some substantial changes in his body composition and his overall body weight. So you can see that his body weight was reduced from 80 kilos to 74 kilos. His body fat percentage was now at 4% of his new total body weight. So it's not 4% of the 80 kilos at the beginning of the camp, it was 4% of the 74 kilos, which was his weight at the end of the training camp. His lean body mass, as you can see, we had an increase in his lean body mass despite his total body weight being lower. So his lean body mass actually rose from 68 kilos to 71 kilos. And then as you can see, 4% of his total body weight was fat, and therefore this equated to 3 kilograms in weight. Now, one thing that we can't determine from this is that Jack actually gained muscle. What we can say is that he gained lean body mass, but given that there are different compartments which constitute lean body mass, we can't say for certain there was an increase. If we look at this infographic by a scientist named Jasker Jaukenrup, you can see that given the body composition and the different models that we have, we can gain an increase reliability with the different types of models. So we have a 2-compartment model which we used here with Jack, where we just measure fat mass and fat-free mass, so we don't actually distinguish whether that was water, protein or minerals. The 3-compartmental model, where we look at fat mass, body, water and protein and minerals, and then the 4-compartment model, where again we separate fat mass, body, water, but this time we can say specifically how much muscle protein we had, and also how much minerals made up his total body composition. This, of course, is determined by the type of body composition assessment which you use, and of course we may not have access to 4-compartmental models given the expense of using such equipment. So hopefully what this case study gives you is some kind of insight into how body recomposition can take place. Of course, we haven't spoken in any detail about the nutrition intervention that was put forward, and also the exercise training regime, strength conditioning program that was also put forward. However, it does show you that body recomposition is possible, that we can gain lean body mass, we can reduce overall total body mass, and we can reduce overall fat mass simultaneously. However, to which degree will depend on a myriad of factors. However, hopefully this gives you some confidence when it comes to you working as a personal trainer that body recomposition can take place with your clients. Hopefully over the course of the level 2 and level 3 personal training qualifications, you'll now start to gain some insight about how those recomposition processes can take place. Okay, so if we start now to look at measuring body composition, you can see that there are a few different ways in which we can determine somebody's body composition. Each one has their strengths and weaknesses, so we'll look at these individually one by one. Starting with the top left here, you can see that we have skinfold calipers. Now, skinfold calipers are relatively cheap and they are considered highly reliable given the right practitioner is using them. However, it does take a lot of training for somebody to be proficient when it comes to using the skinfold calipers. Not everybody might necessarily have the skill in which to get accurate measures. There is also some room for human error, and of course, as we mentioned, It's skilled practitioners really with an extra qualification relating to the use of skinfold calipers, which makes them viable. The second measurement tool that we can use is known as bioelectrical impedance, and this is where an electrical signal or impulse is sent through the participant's body to no pain or to no sensation. And what happens there, they're gathering information on how quick that signal is sent through the body and back into the machine. Here we're finding this quite easy in order to do. I mean, it's literally just pressing a button and away we go once we've inputted our data. It generally takes around 30 seconds, if that, in order to obtain a result, and it is relatively inexpensive. There are some upgrades with bioelectrical impedance, and there are certainly some more expensive models which do and have been proven to be a little bit more reliable. And that is one of the negatives of bioelectrical impedance, is that it can give out unreliable results, especially if they're done back to back. The results which are obtained can actually be quite different from a test that you did literally 30 seconds prior. So there are other things which can determine bioelectrical impedance scores as well, such as hydration levels and whether or not we've eaten. So it's not necessarily seen as the gold standard with body composition measurement. The third method for measuring body composition is hydrostatic weighing or underwater weighing. And what happens here is that we measure a participant's weight outside of the water. We obtain that result, and then they are submerged deep underwater. And given that fat is lighter than bone and muscle, the heavier the weight of somebody that is underwater determines a lower body fat percentage, so the difference between those two body masses. This is actually, or was considered, the gold standard in body fat composition measurements. However, that has been since replaced with the DEXA scanner, which we'll talk about in the next one. It is quite difficult to obtain these results because it does actually require the participant to be able to stay underwater for a given amount of time, completely evacuating all of the air out of their lungs so that a true body density can be weighed. In addition to that, it is quite expensive to gather all of the equipment, and then of course we need a large space in order for a participant to fit underneath and be weighed on the weighing swing. So there are positives and negatives to it, and it certainly was considered for a very long time one of the best ways in which body composition could be measured. The fourth and final method for measuring body composition is what's known as a DEXA scanner. DEXA stands for dual X-ray absorptiometry, and this is considered the gold standard in body composition testing. The reason why it is considered the gold standard is because it is able to detect the differences and distinguish between the types of lean mass. So we mentioned in the previous slide the 4-compartmental model, where we're able to distinguish between water, muscles, minerals and bones, and the DEXA scanner is able to do that. So we get some really comprehensive results from this type of measure. However, this is very expensive, and there are only a handful of universities across the country that have DEXA scanners, so therefore at the moment they are quite rare and hard to come across. So there we have it. These are certainly the 4 most common methods of measuring body composition within the world of sports science and personal training. Of course, for your own professional development as a personal trainer, it is recommended that you become accustomed with at least some of these methods of body composition assessment so that you can better inform your clients when it comes to their health, their weight, and their fitness goals. A much more reductionist method of looking at body composition is identifying the different body types that there are, and this is known as somatotyping. Now, this is certainly a contentious topic in the world of sports science at the moment, whether somatotypes actually exist, but it is worth knowing that people and their body types do fit into different categories. So as you can see from the picture, we have what's known as an ectomorph, and as you can see, they're a slimmer, slender appearance, find weight gain difficult, and generally they have longer limbs. A mesomorph, as you can see, is a little bit more muscular now, has a large bone structure, and adds muscle to their frame quite easily. So this is a mesomorph. And then we have an endomorph, who is a larger, rounder build, generally finds weight loss quite difficult, but can add fat mass and muscle mass quite easily. So this is known as an endomorph. Now, there may be people which fit directly into just one of these categories, okay? However, there is certainly some crossovers between some of those characteristics, hence why people really do argue against whether somatotyping should be used at all when it comes to body composition assessment and looking at different body types. And another method of body composition assessment is body mass index. Although this really doesn't actually measure anything to do with our body composition, it simply just looks at somebody's ideal weight based on the height which they are. So it takes your weight in kilograms and you divide that by your height in meters square. So it's assuming that given the height that we are, we should be within a particular weight range. But of course, this doesn't take into account, for example, somebody that has a large frame due to muscle mass. Somebody could be considered moderately obese or even severely obese if they carry a lot of muscle, because it doesn't distinguish between what type of mass makes up our total body weight in relation to our height. By the same token, somebody could also be considered in a healthy weight range, even though they carry a lot of fat, visceral and subcutaneous, and they have a limited amount of muscle. Based on their height, they could be considered a healthy weight range, even though we know that the true story regarding their body composition is far from ideal. So although it does serve as a nice guidance for a majority of people looking at their weight and their height ratio, it doesn't necessarily look at the full picture when it comes to body composition assessment. And just to recap the main parts of body composition, once again, if you access your workbooklet, find the body composition page and highlight the definitions and the methods of analysis with their respective strengths and weaknesses, that should serve as a nice reminder before your examination. Okay, so I'll see you over in the next video. Good luck.